You've probably heard of central bank digital currencies. The question here is, why are they being implemented? I'm going to show you some incredible information that was released from the IMF that you should know. In today's video, we are going to cover number one, a recession that's taking place on a global scale. Because if you want to implement a new monetary system, and if you want to actually impose onto a large group of people, an entire country or a whole world, you would need a major catalyst to do so. And here we are, okay? First thing is recession. Second thing is major dependence. You look at the water situation in many areas, you look at food and energy, all of which are really having an issue depending on what part of the United States, what part of the world, and you look at all of this really coming to a head at the exact same time. And the third thing is the introduction of a central bank digital currency. We'll cover all of that and more. Let's go. The latest recession probability models by Bloomberg has forecast a higher recession probability across all timeframes with a 12-month estimate of a downturn by October 2023. Check this out, hitting 100%. They are now saying it is a 100% guarantee that by 1 year from now, we are in a recession. Now, of course, aren't we already in one? No, of course, not according to their metrics, but that's besides the point. You look at Canada. Bank of Canada sees worst drop in business outlook since 2020. Inflation expectations remain high for companies and households. It doesn't matter where you look today, the same situation. It's that you have slower growth, you have higher interest rates, you have inflation taken off and they're having trouble controlling it, and potentially more job losses to come. That's a recession. You label it whatever you want to. Call it pancakes. It doesn't matter, okay? It's all the same because the effects are the same. Now, here's the first step. What's the next? Let me show you. China locks down almost 1 million people near iPhone factory. This is yet another situation in which people are being locked down. Now, this is an issue because when they're locked down, they're not out and about, they're not spending money, they're not able to move products overseas, they're not manufacturing. All these different things add up. Okay, so that's occurring here. Some have suggested they want to slow down inflation, and these lockdowns allow them to do so. Now that's speculation, but it's an interesting point. And we have this. US tech giant Apple has put on hold plans to use memory chips from this particular Chinese company in its product. And why? Because Washington imposed tighter export controls against Chinese technology companies. Did you watch yesterday's video? If not, you have to, okay? A lot of people actually clicked on that one. I was interested to see all the comments. Now, what's happening here? Well, of course, there's this worry about China and the US and the battle for hegemony. And China is basically utilizing their stronghold that they have against other countries to basically say, we are going to control all of them through these means, just like the United States does the same thing. This is a chessboard. And what we have right now is Taiwan sitting basically, not geographically, but sitting in the middle of the United States and China. That's one. Then you have another, which is Russia. And you see Russia's independence or dependence that was really there present with Europe. That's slowly changing. It's going to be a while. The dependence that Taiwan really has is on all of these other countries that rely on semiconductors. And that's basically all of them. So you understand where the semiconductors go and why this is the case. Now, China is basically saying, hey, we'll develop our own semiconductors. But in the case of Apple, they don't want anything to do with it because the US is starting to put blocks in place and saying, no, you can't deal with those companies because that's a strategic element that we're implementing today. Who knows where it's going to go, but that's what's occurring. And Apple doesn't want to get stuck in that, okay, because they got to worry about their revenues and their profits and so on. China halts LNG sales to foreign buyers to ensure their own supply. State-owned importers had been reselling LNG to Europe. So this is the way you get around those sanctions. This is the way you get around all those impossible methods. We're going to make sure that Europe doesn't buy any Russian oil or gas or commodities or anything. And then China buys it, and then China resells it. They act as the middleman, make the spread in between, and everything's all good. You see the dependence? You can't get away from it. They can make it seem like they've gotten away from it, but they really haven't. Okay? Next thing. All Nord Stream gas volumes could be redirected via Turkish hub, according to Gazprom. I brought this up in the other video where I basically talked about this. What could happen here? This is the natural gas pipeline, and it just moves through Turkey there, and you look at that and think to yourselves, they could make this happen if they're saying so. What would be the case here? Why would they do it? Well, they're offering a solution. There's no doubt. Russia's saying, hey, we got problems with the Nord Stream 1. You also never signed on Nord Stream 2. We will give you the gas. Here is the pipeline. Let's make it happen. Now, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I know that without Russian gas, people in Europe are going to get higher priced gas for a long time, for years. There's no way that this is going to be resolved anytime soon. It's going to be a cold winter, let me tell you. So the United States can obviously be that partner to step in and bring that over, but it's not very, this is not something that you want to do where you're going to put it on ships and send it over. It's not reliable to, it's much more reliable to have the pipelines there and so on. It's also going to impact the prices of gas that people pay in the United States, okay? Because they have it there. You're starting to deplete your own supply. They've got a lot, but that's besides the point. New England risks winter blackouts as gas supplies tighten, okay? You look at that same place, no matter where you look at this, it's the same issue all over the place, okay? One area might have drought. One area might have problems with their energy. It's all different, but everywhere seems to be having some level of issue. And that is never a good sign. And the last one here, Los Angeles is running out of water and time. And this whole article describes all the different things that they plan on doing and changing and making happen. But is it going to, or are people going to be rationed on their water usage? This all leads me into my next point. Now, I'm going to break it down at the end, but I want you to pay very close attention to the details here that I describe. It is going to be known in the coming days and weeks, but let's get it right now so you are aware of this right away. Central bank digital currencies will let governments control what people spend their money on. And is this just somebody's idea that they came up with? Is this just some random YouTuber saying it? No, this is according to the IMF. Second paragraph, speaking at the IMF World Bank annual meeting, Deputy Managing Director Bo Lee said that a CBDC could improve financial inclusion through programmability. And I quote, a CBDC can allow government agencies and private sector players to program and create smart contracts to allow targeted policy functions. For example, welfare payments. For example, consumption coupons. For example, food stamps. I'm gonna hammer that point home in a second here, but let me finish the quotes, okay? By programming CBDC, that money can precisely be targeted for what kind of people can own CBDC and for what kind of use this money can be utilized. For example, for food. In my opinion, this is absolutely massive. I don't think people are really grasping how powerful this is. Now, I've been talking about this for a while, that a universal basic income would be needed at some point because you go lower and lower down the totem pole, people are pushed down in, the middle class disappears, and then they say, we're going to offer a solution, the central bank digital currency. And most people would say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get into that system. But when you are pushed to the edge, when your gas prices, when your water, when your food are all too expensive and you need that extra hand, well then the CBDC is out there reaching for you. Now, That's what's going on here. They talked about welfare and food and all these other things. They literally mention that. The IMF is talking about that. And we know that these supranational organizations like the IMF, the World Bank, the BIS, and so on are deeply involved in the central bank digital currencies already. That information is public. They know that. They've been talking about this. And it's just how it's going to be implemented. Of course, you see the beta test that's being done with China right now and what they have done. This is different because it's the beta test that's being rolled out, more slowly. But right now, with what the IMF is saying, sounds a lot like that. So what does that mean to you? Well, I want to break it down for you in what we're seeing so far and what you need to be doing. Okay, so here we go. We're talking about this new coin, whatever they're going to call it. And I'm sure each central bank's going to have their own, but they'll all somehow be linked to one of these supranational organizations. Number one, in order to properly implement a new monetary system, a major catalyst must occur in order to deem this change necessary. Look at Bretton Woods, for example. So they couldn't just say tomorrow, we're going to implement a new currency, here you go, and that's what you got to deal with. No, there has to be some major event. You need a big recession, not just a normal recession. It has to be cataclysmic in a way. And nobody knows when that's going to happen or what have you, but without a crisis, you can't implement that supposed solution. So keep your eyes peeled. The IMF has now stated publicly that the introduction of a CBDC gives the authorities complete control over the people. If you control the food, you control the people. We've heard that before, right? And you look at this more in depth and you see that central banks can decide the value of the currency. They can put downward pressure on not only the currency, but assets themselves. Look, your house, if people draw value from their house, well, if they bring the housing prices down because they shoot interest rates up, and then what does that do to the people? Well, it basically evaporates the middle class and their so-called net worth. They crush the stocks. They crush all the other assets. And we see that right now today going on. If they implement a CBDC, they would have 100% control of every transaction and aspect. They'd be able to see them all. They'd be able to make them all happen or not happen. This is what you got to do right now today, the best you can do, of course. First thing is lessen your dependence on the system by having multiple income streams. So you will see how much more important this is in the coming weeks as I break this down further and further on these videos. These are the two pillars, okay? Look at this. You want multiple income sources, preferably geographically diversified, because you don't want to rely on your one area. You want that mobility, okay? And the next thing is to hold real assets, one, and try to become as self-sufficient as possible. Because if food prices are up and energy prices are up, and that's really hurting people, hurting your neighbors, hopefully you are more, not entirely self-sufficient, but at least much more self-sufficient than the people around you. And you're going to be better off as a result of all of that. Okay, I've got full videos breaking this stuff down. I got the how-to and solutions playlist. I've talked about earning income through my Amazon course. I've got everything that you need to know, and much more will be coming. In fact, tomorrow's video is going to be huge. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you click that subscribe button. I'll see you then. Take care.